You're listening to 105.3, The Gerblin, Dominaria's #1 music source for generic goblin noise.
Hey gang, using the promo code MTGMudsta, one word, all caps, will get you 10% off orders of $10 or more at Flipside Gaming, Original Magic Art, and orders of singles at Multizone. If they don't have what you're looking for, you could check out TCG Player and use my affiliate link to help support the channel. Looking for a way to bling out your deck and not spend a fortune? Alter Sleaze can help with that, and you can help with the channel at the same time by using my affiliate link. Or, if you're looking to join the Goblin Gang, you can always support me through Patreon. Hey gang, just so you know, Flipside Gaming is doing a giveaway for a Kaldheim Draft Booster Box. By placing an order with my Flipside Gaming promo code MTGMudsta, all caps, you'll be entered to win. Alternatively, you can send a stamped, self-addressed envelope or postcard to Flipside Gaming to the address below. The contest will run from January 25th until February 8th. Only one entry per household, so good luck, and let me know what you get if you win. So today's game is pretty cool as I'm joined by 3 of my patrons to play a game of EDH through Discord. First up we have Luke bringing his Goreclaw deck. He has 4 forests, Great Oak Guardian, Ulamog, and a Thicket Elemental for his opening hand. Wes is playing Araumi, keeping a Polluted Delta, 4 swamps, Crucible of Worlds, and Gorging Vulture. Skylar, who you may remember from some of my in-person gameplays, is playing Syr Gwyn, and he keeps a Plains, a Godless Shrine, a Sacred Foundry, an Isolated Chapel, a Dragonskull Summit, a Benelish Marshal, and the Circle of Loyalty. I'm playing Horde of Notions, and since I asked everyone else to record their hands, I clearly forgot to do it myself. I win the die roll and start us off. I play a tapped Watery Grave. Luke draws and plays a forest, tapping it for 1 to cast his newly drawn Llanowar Elves. Wes plays a Polluted Delta for turn, passing. Skylar plays a Sacred Foundry, taking 2 from it, and he casts Land Tax, passing back to me. I draw and play an island, passing. Luke drops another forest and goes to combat. He hits Skylar for 1 with the Elves, passing. Wes plays a swamp, passing. Skylar uses his land tax trigger on his upkeep, but only grabs 1 land, a mountain. Skylar then draws for turn and plays a tap Godless Shrine. I draw and play a swamp. I cast Tortured Existence for 1 black, passing to Luke. Luke plays out another forest after he draws for turn, and he taps out for Goreclaw in his main phase. His commander enters, and he then passes to Wes. Wes draws and plays another swamp. 3 mana gets him the Gorging Vulture, and as it comes in, he mills himself for 4. Unfortunately, none of those are creatures, so he gains no extra life. Skylar gets 2 lands this time with his land tax trigger, a swamp and a plains. He plays Dragonskull Summit, and then casts Urza's Incubator, naming knights as it comes in. He passes and discards a land. I draw and can't find any other colors than blue and black, and I have to pass to Luke. Luke plays a forest for turn and casts a Thicket Elemental. The cost of it is reduced thanks to Goreclaw, so he's able to pay the kicker. This has Luke revealing off the top until he hits a creature, and we see a Thunderfoot Baloth join the party. Moving to combat, Goreclaw then goes at Wes. Wes thinks about blocking, but just decides to take the hit for 7, and Luke then passes. Wes draws and plays another swamp. He then brings in Araumi and passes to Skylar. Skylar plays an Isolated Chapel for turn, and then taps enough for Syr Gwyn. He then passes to me. My turn has me drawing and still not having a land. I do manage to pay mana for a Phantasmal Image, having it come in as a copy of the disappointedly small Llanowar Elves. At least I have access to green now, and I pass to Luke. Luke draws and pays 5 for Return of the Wildspeaker. He picks the mode to draw cards, and it resolves, with Luke drawing 7 cards thanks to the large Thunderfoot Baloth. Sadly, he doesn't draw into a Reliquary Tower though, and he instead plays a forest. He casts a Fyndhorn Elves, and we roll into combat. He swings Goreclaw at Wes again, and the Thunderfoot at Skylar. With Goreclaw attacking, it pumps the creatures and gives them trample. Wes then blocks with the Vulture while Skylar takes the hit for full, with Wes taking some splashover damage from trample. Luke then passes, discarding down to 7, and since one of those cards is Ulamog, he shuffles his whole graveyard into his library. Wes draws and plays another swamp. He pays 1 blue and 1 black, casting Glimpse the Unthinkable and targets himself. He mills himself for 10 cards, hitting exactly 0 creatures. He then taps his commander and pays 3 mana plus exiling some cards to encore back out the Gorging Vulture. He gets 3 token copies of it, each which trigger and mill himself for 4 cards. He hits 2 creatures off the first trigger, gaining 2 life. He hits 2 off the second, gaining 2 more life, and then 1 off the final one, gaining 1 life. Moving to combat, he has to swing each token at a different opponent, and does so. We each take the 2, and Wes then passes, sacrificing them at the end of turn. Skylar gets his land tax trigger again, and goes to find 2 plains on his upkeep. He then draws, and plays one of them out in his main phase. We then see a Phyrexian Crusader hit the field, and he then pays 3 white for a Benelish Marshal, passing back to me. I draw and still can't find a land. Thankfully I can tap my Phantasmal Image Llanowar Elves to help cast a Leafkin Druid, and I then pass to Luke. Luke untaps and draws. He plays a Forest and pays 5 mana for Sight of the Scale Lords, which is a card I'd never seen before. He then pays 2 for Swiftfoot Boots, and taps the 1 needed to pay the equip cost. He tries to gear up Goreclaw, but in response I use Unsubstantiate to bounce his commander back to hand. He then goes to combat, and the Sight pumps his 2 creatures, giving them Vigilance and +2/+2. The Thunderfoot Baloth goes at me, while the Elemental goes at Skylar. Skylar double blocks with the Crusader and Syr Gwyn. With the Crusader having First Strike though, and Infect, it gives the Elemental 3 -1/-1 counters first, and normal damage then happens. And Luke can only assign lethal to the Crusader with the now reduced power Thicket Elemental. I then take my hit, and Luke passes. Wes untaps and plays a Swamp. He activates Araumi again, exiling enough cards, and then encores out a Grave Titan. 3 token copies enter, and he makes 6 2/2 zombie tokens. Moving to combat, 1 Titan apiece swings at each of us, which triggers their on-attack ability, making 6 more 2/2 zombies. We all decide to take the hit for 6, and Wes has amassed a sizable zombie army. He then passes, and at the end of turn, exiling the Titans, but the zombies still remain. Skylar finds a swamp with his land tax trigger, and then draws it for turn. He plays an Evolving Wilds, and pays 2 mana for a Thought Vessel. 4 mana then gets Skylar a Circle of Loyalty, and he passes, sacrificing the Evolving Wilds to find a basic at the end of turn. I draw and cast a Soul Ring. I then tap 3 for an Overgrowth Elemental, which as it enters, puts a +1/+1 counter onto my Leafkin Druid, and I then pass to Luke. Luke plays a Forest and casts Elemental Bond. 4 mana then gets tapped for Goreclaw, who enters and triggers the bond, letting Luke draw from it. He pays the 1 to try and move Swiftfoot Boots onto his commander, which then resolves. The Lieutenant ability is now active from his Thunderfoot Baloth, and he goes to combat. He asks for how big Skylar's creatures are, which isn't a bad idea with the 2 pump effects he has out on his side of the board. His creatures then get pumped by the Sight trigger, gaining +2/+2 in Vigilance, and he swings both at me. I stop 2 of the commander damage with the Overgrowth Elemental, and I then take the rest to the face. Luke then passes to Wes. Wes untaps and draws. He pays 5 mana for a Black Market, and Luke realizes he didn't calculate for the Goreclaw trigger pump, so I actually would have taken 2 more damage than I did, which we correct. We then move to Wes's combat step, and he swings 4 zombies at Luke. Luke is able to block 2 of them, taking 4, and with the zombie tokens dying, Wes is able to put 2 counters onto his Black Market. Skylar gets his land tax trigger, and finds 3 basics, putting them to hand, and then shuffling up. He draws for turn, and plays a Temple of Malice tapped, scrying 1. He keeps it on top, and passes to me. At the end of turn, I activate Tortured Existence to swap Dax Duplicate from my hand for the Overgrowth Elemental in my graveyard. I then draw for turn, and it's still not a land, but I do have enough mana to cast Soul of the Harvest, which will hopefully let me draw into lands eventually. Luke plays a Forest for turn, and then taps 5 mana for Palaka Worm. It's reduced because of Goreclaw being out, and he gains 7 life as the worm enters. He then moves the Swiftfoot Boots over onto the worm, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's magic, and we go to combat. All of his creatures gain +2/+2 from the Thunderfoot static ability, and then another +2/+2 from the Sight trigger, followed by a further +1/+1 because of Goreclaw swinging. They also gain Trample and Vigilance, and Wes gets the Palaka Worm, with the Goreclaw headed at me and the Thunderfoot going at Skylar. Wes blocks with enough zombies, which in this case is 6, while Skylar activates his circle to make a Knight token, which is a 4/4, and he blocks with Syr Gwyn and the token, which is enough to trade. I am also forced to block with my Soul of the Harvest, but still take spillover damage from Trample. With the Palaka Worm dying, Luke gets to draw a card, while Wes adds a ton of counters to his black market. In Luke's second main phase, Goreclaw gets the boots again, and Luke then casts a Rampant Growth before passing to Wes. Wes gains 12 black mana in his main phase from the black market, and activates his commander, using 4 of the black mana to cast Kel's Fight Fixer with Encore. He gets 3 token copies of it, and has to immediately sacrifice 2 of them to the legendary rule. He does so, but this also gives him a bunch of death triggers from all the Kells seeing the other Kells dying. He pays the 1 for each of the triggers, essentially letting him draw a bunch of cards. He then uses the rest of the floating plus a land for Crucible of Worlds. This lets Wes play out Manamo from his graveyard, and he then taps another 2 for a Blood Artist, and then pays 2 more mana for Soul Devi Adonate. He then goes to combat. Kells goes at Luke, who blocks with Goreclaw. With her dying, Wes adds another counter to the black market, and realizes he should have added 2 more because of the earlier Kells who died for the cause. Wes also gets a Blood Artist trigger, and targets Luke with it, draining him for 1, and then passes to Skylar. Skylar plays an Inspiring Veteran, and casts Syr Gwyn again, getting a Knight token from the circle, seeing him cast a legendary creature. Skylar then plays out an Orzhov Basilica, bouncing back to hand his Temple of Malice. I untap and draw. I pay 1 black to Tortured Existence, and discard the earlier returned Overgrowth Elemental to swap it for the Soul of the Harvest. I then pay 6 to cast it, and hopefully keep myself in the game, passing to Luke. Luke draws, and we all know we've got to take out Wes, or that Grey Merchant is going to end the game. Luke decides to try and cast Artisan of Kozilek, and he gets the on-cast trigger, but responding to this, Wes counters it with an Arcane Denial. It's countered, but Luke still gets to return the Baloth to the field. Luke then moves to combat, and surprisingly passes through his phases, and passes turn. On Wes's upkeep, Luke draws 2 cards while Wes draws 1 from Arcane Denial's delayed trigger. Before leaving the upkeep step though, Luke then taps 3 for Beast Within and targets the black market. Wes then counters it with Counterspell. We then move to the draw step, with Wes drawing for turn. He has no more blue mana now, and he gains 12 black mana as he moves to his main phase. Wes then plays Command Tower from his graveyard thanks to the Crucible of Worlds as his land for turn, and he activates Araumi, exiling enough cards to encore Grey Merchant of Asphodel. His Devotion to Black once they all enter is 11, which means his opponents each get drained for 11 while he gains 33. He also gets to do this 2 more times, but the first one is enough to kill Skylar and me. Once the other 2 triggers are done, Luke is sitting at a dangerous 1 life, and all Wes needs to do to win is sacrifice a creature with the Adonate to drain Luke out with a Blood Artist trigger. Game review time. I think Goreclaw did a great showing in this game. The cost reduction from Goreclaw was a massive impact on a lot of Luke's decisions, and powering in a Thicket Elemental as early as he did, plus getting a free creature, was a great play. My Horde of Notions deck, however, let me down significantly this game, mostly because I didn't draw any lands, and I had to use clones on some really bad mana dorks. And I think Skylar would agree that his deck had the opposite problem, which seemed to be flooding out with lands, even though he was clearing a lot out of his deck using the land tax to hopefully draw into some gas. Wes did a great job with Araumi, and really hammered the point home that Grey Merchant Ashadel is a great black finisher, and although that was a cool way to win, I do think getting 3 Grave Titans was a lot cooler, and having an army of 12 2/2 zombies the same turn as you cast it blew my mind. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/mtgmudsta, and lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/mtgmudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.